This is Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. So you're walking down the sidewalk, maybe a sandwich and a drink in one hand, you're minding your own business, headphones in, when whoa, a person whips by you, flying by on a motorized scooter. Maybe you drop that drink. I don't know. It could be from personal experience I'm speaking. Has that happened to you lately? It's not just your imagination that there are more e-bikes and scooters zipping around our streets. Data collected by the Seattle Department of Transportation shows that between January and early August of 2025, the number of trips recorded on shared bikes and scooters jumped nearly 75% compared with the same time period last year. As streets and sidewalks get more crowded, how are cities like Seattle adapting? Let's talk about the two-wheeled vehicles taking Seattle by storm with Jeff Bailey, a writer and editor in Denver. He is a former Seattle resident, and he wrote about how cities are trying to manage all of this for the Wall Street Journal recently. Jeff, welcome to Soundside. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I mentioned the growing usage of micromobility rides here in Seattle. You looked at other cities around the country. How popular are these alternatives getting these days?
Huge. It's a case of the U.S. kind of catching up to some Asian and European countries that have been way ahead on this. And there's a lot of companies making interesting new little vehicles that you can buy that aren't all that expensive. And so there's just a lot going on. It may look like chaos to people who don't recognize what's going on. It certainly seems a little chaotic to me. Overall, it's a good problem because these little vehicles are much safer to the wider world than cars, which kill about 40,000 people a year in the US. But it is a management problem for cities, and they're really struggling with it.
Yeah, let's talk about those pain points when it comes to micromobility vehicles flooding the streets and sidewalks. What is the issue that urban planners are facing here? Is it just the sheer number of them, where to store them when it comes to they pile up sometimes on sidewalks? Or is it their interactions with cars? I mean, where are the biggest pain points?
I think it's when you have vehicles that travel at different speeds that the biggest problems occur. So you got an old geezer like me on a standard bike that's going kind of slow, and along comes a 28 mile per hour e-bike, or maybe there's a scooter that goes 40 miles an hour, and we're all in the bike lane together. And maybe not everybody is as considerate as they could be, or maybe I'm not looking where I'm going, but that can make for a scary bike lane. And then let's say one of us jumps up on the sidewalk to make a delivery or hops into traffic with cars, and cars aren't looking for us because American drivers don't generally look for two-wheelers. So you got just things crossing from the car lanes to the bike lanes to the sidewalks in unexpected ways, and it's a little jarring for people.
What do we know about how urban planners are trying to address this? I was really struck by a quote you included in your piece saying basically we didn't build bike infrastructure for this type of motorized vehicle. I mean, as you noted, they're going at different speeds. There are interactions that, are naturally gonna cause safety issues. How are urban planners addressing it?
Um, Not as much as they might as you might want them to, but they are doing some. So a lot of the shared scooter rental operations, by agreement with the cities they operate in, cap the speed of their vehicles. Some as low as 10 miles an hour, most more like 15 miles an hour. And that's helpful. And then e-bikes generally go 20 to 27 miles an hour. So there, by that way, we're applying some order. But a lot of cities in the U.S. still don't even have bike lanes. So they're way behind, and there's a lot of car driver hostility to bike lanes and two-wheelers. And so we're way behind on this when you compare us to Europe and Asia, countries that have long relied on two-wheelers as primary transportation for a lot of people.
Where is the best place for a micromobility vehicle, like an e-bike that can go 20 to 30 miles per hour? I mean, is it in the bike lane? I know when we reached out to Seattle Department of Transportation about this, they pointed us to their growing bike lane network and said that bike mobility is a big part of their Seattle transportation plan. But bikes and e-bikes are quite different beasts. I mean, depending on how beefy that e-bike motor is. Did you hear from anybody about the ideal place for an e-bike that is, speedier than a regular bike, Jeff?
Yeah, they belong in the bike lane up to a certain speed, but then when they're larger, heavier vehicles and they go 40 miles an hour, they belong with the cars generally. The trouble is that if you're riding a scooter that goes 40 miles an hour, you probably don't want to be out there with the cars because they're going to scare you to death. And so a lot of bike advocates will point out that the problem here is cars, not two-wheelers. That American drivers drive fast, they drive giant vehicles, pickup trucks. They have poor visibility and they don't know to look for two-wheelers or choose to look for two-wheelers. And so a piece of it is car and truck driver behavior and speeds. And those are vastly different in countries that are ahead on use of two-wheelers. And then, we're going to have vehicles that go different speeds. A lot of it is just behavior. There's cars out there that go 150 miles an hour, but we don't expect to see them doing that, right? And there's a lot of these two-wheelers that go, 40, even 60 miles an hour. And that's very surprising. We wouldn't expect them to do that. So a lot of it is learned behavior, and we're behind on that. We have some cowboys in the bike lanes that make things a little scary sometimes.
Were you able to track down safety numbers or get a sense of whether this is a bigger issue than, say, traffic collisions in between a bike and a car? Like when you talk about the actual safety risks, you mentioned already that these are, certainly it's an inconvenience. There are problems when you mix different speeds of different vehicles, but it's nothing compared to, a collision between a car and a bike, right? I mean, what do we know about the actual safety risks here?
Well, so total car deaths, car-related deaths are about 40,000. I think about 7,500 of those are cars hitting two-wheelers. And so, and I don't believe anybody tracks the occurrence of two-wheelers hitting pedestrians, although it happens, and it's frightening. So we don't have perfect data on all this, but we know that speed and mass are the things that kill people with vehicles. And so as a car or a truck gains speed and its weight is substantial, it's a very dangerous thing. So these little two-wheelers are less dangerous. I think that it's the perception of some chaos out there that really annoys a lot of people. And if you're like me, and I've been in bike lanes for years and years, I like a nice sedate bike lane. And when scooters are buzzing around me, I find it annoying. And I think, part of the problem is probably me. I'm going to need to learn to live with varying speed vehicles in the bike lane over time.
In the course of your reporting, when you were talking to these urban planners and folks around in different cities around the country, did you come up with a set of best practices or guidelines, either for the people who are planning for these micromobility vehicles, scooters, e-bikes, everything else, or best practices for the people who are riding them?
Yeah, well, the for people writing them, that's easy. The golden rule maybe is, ride like you'd want other people to ride, and look out for people the way you'd want to be looked out for. And if you're the higher speed vehicle, look out for the slower speed vehicles the way you'd want bigger and higher speed vehicles to look out for you. And I suppose sets of laws and licenses and all that could help enforce that. We don't have much enforcement in this area. As far as a scheme, I think cities are far behind. The people I talk to, even in the Netherlands, which prides itself on being, the bikiest country, they're really struggling. Uh, Amsterdam, like New York City, has tons of food delivery people buzzing around in their bike lanes and all over the place. And it's challenging because over there, you got people in their 70s and even 80s riding bicycles regularly, and you have children riding bicycles independently. It's a primary means of transportation. And so when the bike lanes become dangerous, it's a real threat up and down society. And in cities here in the US where more and more people are riding their bike, it's the same thing. So I think it's going to take a lot of thinking and different moves by cities to try to make things safer.
Has anybody tried to get folks riding these things to wear helmets?
Oh, the Dutch are actually talking about helmets more, and you see more helmets over there. And then, some cities require helmets on certain vehicles. Some don't. Some require license on certain, driver's license on certain vehicles. Some don't. And one of the problems is that if you're a cop or other enforcement person and you're looking at these vehicles, you're not sure what you're looking at. There are things that look like normal e-bikes that go 60 miles an hour, and you and I wouldn't know it from looking at it. It's confusing, and there really is no national body that I'm aware of that even classifies these things, and certainly none that regulates them.
I know you didn't, this wasn't the focus of your piece, but one thing that does get people pretty worked up around Seattle is when these things pile up in places or they create kind of, a mess in neighborhood streets. You see Lime scooters and e-bikes kind of getting abandoned in random places, and it annoys people. It blocks the sidewalks. People can't get by, things like that. Did you come across anybody who's trying to address that issue?
I didn't talk to people about that, but you could certainly take back a few parking spaces and for cars, and you have a lot of room for bikes. They don't take up that much space.
Kind of create like
And
pens basically with a couple of
sure, and
parking
and
spots.
then
Yeah.
if people leave them where they don't belong, you can take them. But I was just in a bunch of different Dutch cities and Danish cities, and they have parking there for bikes everywhere. And there are parking lots that hold thousands of bikes at the train stations in these countries. And we'll just have to get there over time, and that will probably involve taking space that cars now think belongs to them.
Yeah, as you say, when you have proper places to put these things, you have a less of an issue with them becoming a problem. Jeff, if you could make one prediction about how cities are going to adapt to these vehicles, maybe in the next 10, 20 years, what would it be?
I'd say slowly. Uh, I'm not optimistic that American cities will get out in front of this. I think a few will. Seattle might be a candidate for that. It's a very progressive place. You have a lot of people who are outdoorsy and exercise and are in good shape. But I would say we're probably also going to experience a backlash. Some of that's going on in New York right now, where there's efforts to take back bike lanes. And I think we'll see some of that. There's some people that just, the idea of bikes seems very silly to them. I think one of the comments in the comment section of the Wall Street Journal story I wrote referred to bike psychos. So
Whoa. How does it
um,
feel to be a bike psycho, Jeff?
it feels great. But I'm careful. So I would say slowly. If you look at two other amazing technological advances for cities have been Uber and Airbnb. Great if you're a consumer of the service, but they've been highly disruptive, right? And I watched American cities were very slow to collect information to even figure out what Uber and Airbnb were doing. And by the time cities got their act together, these were established services. They had kind of put cabs out of business. They had invented a whole bunch of hotel rooms that didn't exist before. And so you have all these micromobility manufacturers that are selling these vehicles. So businesses tend to work a lot faster in the US than government does. And so I would expect that the problems in the bike lanes and elsewhere with this would get a lot worse before they get better.
We've been talking about scooters, e-bikes, and traffic on the roads with writer and editor Jeff Bailey. He's in Denver. He wrote about this for the Wall Street Journal. Jeff, really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. It's great to be with you.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. By the way, this show is only possible because listeners support us. If you are able to give right now, check out the show notes for a link to donate. And don't forget, you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org.